Hello everyone, this is Derek. My first YouTube video that I ever did was my PlayStation 1 RPG collection. So I thought that I should do probably another video on that to go through my PlayStation 2 RPG collection. I may end up doing videos on some of my other systems as well, just depending on if I feel like it, I guess. But I did want to do the PlayStation 2 because it's a system that I think has a lot of amazing RPGs and is one of my favorite systems of all time because of that. I actually have also added some more games to my PlayStation 1 collection, but I have a feeling probably what I'll do is do another video after this one where I talk about some of the additional PlayStation 1 games that I've added, sort of like a pickups video, and I may be adding some more PlayStation 2 games as well because I have a few that are on my radar, so I'll talk about those as well. But let's go ahead and get started with this one. I've got a nice big stack here. The first game that we have here is Lord of the Rings The Third Age. Now this is a game that I have played a little bit of, but I never have finished it. And sadly, you will kind of notice that that's a theme with this video. There are a lot of PlayStation 2 games that I've started and haven't finished, but I'm trying to fix that. But this game is very much inspired by Final Fantasy X. It has a very similar kind of feel to the world and the way that you interact with it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, because to me, Final Fantasy X had a lot of really great mechanics in it, and to be able to take that system and put it with Lord of the Rings is really exciting. So this is one that I want to get back to. It's actually on my list of, I have a list of games that I'm trying to get to and finish this year, and this is on there. I actually recently found the strategy guide to this at a store for like $1, I think. So I went ahead and picked it up just because I thought that would be kind of nice to have. I don't know if I'll necessarily need it, but I kind of like strategy guides. So when I find one for, especially an RPG, for a reasonable price, I'll pick it up. So Lord of the Rings The Third Age. Next game is Star Ocean Till the End of Time. This is another one that I have started and have not finished, and I kind of got to a point in Star Ocean where I was a little stuck and couldn't quite figure out where to go. And I kind of regret not finishing it. I just sort of gave up on it, and I would like to go back to it because I really did like the sci-fi feel of the Star Ocean game. I like the fact that it was sort of this Japanese RPG, but more sci-fi than fantasy. And I thought the storyline was really pretty interesting, so I want to get back to it because I thought there were a lot of nice things. At this point, though, I don't know if I will remember the mechanics, how to play it, or where I am, what I'm doing, so it may be one that I have to start over, which I really don't want to have to do, but so be it. That may be what happens. But overall, I have liked it. I just kind of got stuck. The next two games are two games in a series that actually originated on the PlayStation 1, I believe. At least they were on the PlayStation 1. It may have been on a different system prior to that. But that is the Arc the Lad series. And so I have here Arc the Lad, Twilight of the Spirits, and Arc the Lad, End of Darkness. So this one I have played quite a bit, and I didn't finish it. Again, running theme. And I really want to go back to it. It's been a long time. It was a long time ago that I played this. And I'd like to actually go back and start it over because I really like the Arc the Lad system. This one is a little different from the ones that were on the PlayStation 1, at least the ones of them that I've played. I've only played the first one. That one was a little bit more strategy RPG, and this one still has some elements of that because you are moving your characters around the field, but it's a little bit different, just sort of in the way that it's set up. But I really thought it was a lot of fun, and one of the things that I liked about it, because I'm not a huge strategy RPG fan, but I like this one because, and even the old Arc the Lad games too, because it seemed to take away some of the tedium of it, because you could just freely move throughout your area. You didn't have to click the character, click where he's moving to, all of that. You just basically had the number of squares that you could move, highlighted, and then you could just move wherever you want. Whenever you were done, then you did your next move, attack, or whatever. So I really did like the way that that worked, and it seemed to make the game flow a lot faster and make the combat a lot more interesting. So I really do recommend this one. This is, I think, a little bit of a hidden gem. People don't talk about it, and I think it's got a lot of really good stuff in it. The next one is End of Darkness. Now this one I actually haven't played yet. I bought this one, and I've heard, and you kind of flip through the manual, it looks like they're taking more of an action RPG approach with this one, so I don't think there is any strategy to it at all, which I think kind of made the game not very well received because it was such a departure from the original, from the other games in the series. But still, I wanted to try it. I want to see what it's like. So I have bought it, but I just haven't had a chance to start it up yet. So I'll be interested to see what that's like. The next one here is Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts is another game that I got stuck in. There was a section, I think somewhere in Alice in Wonderland, I think is where it was. I got just stuck. I could not figure out where to go. And one of the things that was a little frustrating about the game was how every time you would go to a new area, all of the enemies would respawn, you have to fight through them again, and for whatever reason, where I was, again, I don't exactly remember, it just was frustrating because I was trying to figure out where to go, and I just had to stop and fight things every 5 steps, it seemed like. So I just ended up getting frustrated and stopping the game. And I always regretted that because I love the concept. I mean, it's Disney, it's Final Fantasy, it's really cool, the combat system was a lot of fun. So I love the idea of it. I do want to go back to it, but I think I'm actually going to pick up the HD remake of the game and play it on the PlayStation 3, because I think that'll be a little bit better than going back to the old one. But it is still nice to have in the collection. Alright, the next 2 are also another set. I don't have Kingdom Hearts 2 either, so I'll be getting that one on the HD collection. And I'm kind of on the fence about whether I should get it for the PlayStation 2, because the collector in me would like to have it, but I'm not really a collector because I don't really obsess over it, so it does seem a little silly. My main thing is I want to play the game, so we'll see. I may end up picking it up on there if I can find it at a good price. The next 2 games are also in a series here. We have Xenosaga Episode 1 and Xenosaga Episode 2. Now, the thing is, this is a trilogy, and even on the very first game it says really big, Episode 1, and it is one story, one overarching thing in the trilogy. The problem is that third game is hard to find, and when you do find it, it can be pretty expensive. So I have started the first one. When I first bought this, I started it, and this was years ago. And I played through a little bit of it, and I did enjoy it. But then when I found out it was a series, I thought, well, I'm going to wait until I get the rest of them. And then I was lucky enough recently to find Episode 2 for a decent price, but everywhere I've looked for Episode 3, the cheapest I've seen is about $60, which is not ridiculous. It's the price of a new game today, but still, it's just a lot of money to drop on a retro game. But I kind of am hesitant to really start these other 2 until I have that, because if I do get through them, I want to be able to finish the story. So I haven't gotten really into these yet, but I'm going to. I think, too, part of it, with the collector side of me, that little collector that's in there somewhere, would have a hard time just having the first 2 of a trilogy and not the third. So I think for that sake alone, I may end up having to get it. The next one here, this is a game that I found just recently. I didn't know anything about it. It's called Drakon the Ancient Gates. I found it cheap somewhere. It looked kind of interesting. It's definitely an old school sort of Western style RPG. Has some very dated graphics and some combat or control issues with as far as being dated, but it didn't look. It was actually pretty fun. I didn't play through the whole thing. I played through a bit of it. One thing I really wish was that the game had a better map. That's one thing I noticed, that the in-game map was a little difficult to use, or it may not even have one at all. And in an area I was in, I kind of got a little bit lost and couldn't quite tell where I was going. That's when I stopped the game. Wasn't really sitting down with the intention of finishing it. I was really sitting down, just wanted to try it out. But I did notice fairly early on that it was a little frustrating because in this area, which was a little complicated, this dungeon, I couldn't figure out where to go, and there was no in-game map. So I think I have seen a strategy guide for this somewhere at a local store. I might pick that up just to have, because maybe it would be kind of nice to play through the game, because I did enjoy a lot of what it did, and maybe having that strategy guide will take care of the map problem. Next game here is Champions of Norrath. This is a Diablo-style action RPG set in the EverQuest world. A lot of fun. I haven't played it in a really long time, but I really did like it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I sort of have a interesting relationship with action RPGs. I like them, but I really like them on the console. I'm just one that I think that having that controller in your hand and pushing the button to swing the sword feels a little more visceral and a little more exciting than just clicking everything on the PC. So even though there aren't as many of them on the consoles, I prefer playing them on there, and I really did enjoy that one. The next game is Deus Ex. Now this game is very, very well loved, and I have had a little bit of a hard time getting into it, and I feel a little bit bad about that. But I think some of it is simply that it is dated, and it is hard to kind of go into it now. I don't know, for some reason, I've tried a couple of times to get into it, and it's not that I don't like it, but at the same time it doesn't excite me or interest me or compel me to go on further. So it's one that I've just kind of left on the shelf, but I feel kind of bad about that because everyone seems to love it so much. I finally did pick up the second one, the one that's, I can't remember what it's called, but it's on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. I haven't started it yet, but I did find it for a decent price, so I went ahead and picked it up. Alright, next we're going to get into some Final Fantasy games, and then we're going to get into some of the games that are my personal favorites. I've sort of saved the best for last on the system here. So the first game is Final Fantasy X, classic. I'm not as big of a fan of Final Fantasy X as a lot of people are. I do think it's a good game, and it's got an amazing combat system. I think the combat system in this one may be the best that Final Fantasy ever got. I really do think it's pretty solid. And there is some good stuff in here. There are some good moments in the story, and there are some interesting characters. Overall, though, I'm just not a huge fan of the characters or the story. It's more like there are those characters and story moments are sort of highlights, but the overall is a little bit blah for me. So, and I know everybody loves this game, and there are a lot of people that it's their favorite Final Fantasy. It is good. I don't think it's anywhere close to the best Final Fantasy. It's somewhere probably in the middle, but it does have a lot of redeeming qualities. And I did finish this one. This is the one that I actually did finish. One that I have not finished, however, though, is Final Fantasy X-2. Now, this game, I picked this one up, and I've played a little bit of it, but I haven't really gotten into it much at all. And I know a lot of people really hate this game. And when I played of it, I actually really liked. I thought it was pretty interesting, and it definitely had a different feel from Final Fantasy X, which I kind of liked because I wasn't a huge fan of Final Fantasy X. So I think that I might actually like this game more than the general public. However, I think I'm going to pick it up on the Vita and play it on the HD collection. So I haven't done that yet, but I'm getting ready to buy that one because it's kind of been sitting in the back of my mind wanting to be played, so I'm probably going to play it there, but it's still nice to have in my collection for the PlayStation 2. And the next one here is Final Fantasy XII. Now this game I have started a couple of times and I have not finished it, and there are a couple of reasons why I haven't, and I think I'm going to try to overcome that because I really like the game. I really like what it's doing. I like the combat system. I like the gambit system. There's so much in here to love. But there are a couple of things that just drive me nuts and I think have kept me from continuing to play the game. One thing was the camera. The camera drives me nuts in this game because I want to reverse the left and right. And there is nowhere in the configuration settings that you can do that. And it drives me crazy because it's just backwards from what I'm used to playing with. And it seems like a small thing, but my gosh, it drives me absolutely crazy. And it's so difficult to play the game without having that configured the way I'm used to. The second thing is the licensing board, which is the way that you develop your characters. I don't like the system. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for you to be selecting things without having any knowledge of where you're going. I think that just is really frustrating because it makes it difficult and there adds too much random luck to building your character, which is not something I like. So I have picked up a strategy guide for this that has a nice big poster of the license board that lets me know exactly where everything is, and I will just use that to help guide how I want to build my characters because I think that'll make me like the game a lot more and appreciate it a lot more. I think what ended up happening, looking back, a lot of times I wouldn't make any selections on the license board. I guess I just kind of got analysis paralysis because I was so afraid of making the wrong choice that I didn't really end up spending my points at all, and then I would get into fights and really not be adequately prepared for them because I hadn't been leveling up my characters on the board. So I think once I have that under my belt, I will like the game a lot more, it will play a lot better, and I'll have a lot more fun with it because there were a lot of really cool things that this game did. This one is also on my list this year to try to get to. I'm not sure I'm going to, but I'm going to try. The next game here is Shadow Hearts Covenant. Now this is a game that I have not played yet. This one is, I found this at a fairly good price, so I picked it up because I know the Shadow Hearts games are kind of hard to find, but I've heard nothing but good things about this series. I also recently found the first game at a local game store here for a decent price, and I'm probably going to be picking that up maybe this week sometime because I really want to snatch it up before someone else gets it. But I'm excited to try it, and one of the reasons I hadn't started this game yet was because I kept holding out hope that I would get the first one. This one, I believe, is the second in the series, and I wanted to try the first one first. But I'm really excited because I've just heard nothing but good things, and the fact that the prices on the games tend to be a little high might be an indicator that it's also pretty good. And it doesn't always mean that, but a lot of times, if the more well-loved a game is, the more expensive it can be. This game is Rogue Galaxy. This one, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this game. I've not finished it, but I've gotten pretty far in it, probably about 35 hours maybe. Maybe even longer, I can't remember. But the problem is, there are a lot of things this game does really well. The combat is fun, the characters are interesting, the graphics are great, it's got this beautiful cel-shaded style that I love, but it just does a couple of things really poorly that make the game overall frustrating. And I think the biggest problem that I have, well, the biggest problem I have right now is I'm on a boss that I just can't get past. I've been trying, and it's one of these boss fights where there are actually like 3 or 4 bosses in a row. It's a sort of endurance thing. And it's always, of course, like one of the latter ones that I end up dying on, and then I have to go back and replay the other ones, and it's just a huge pain, and I don't like it. But the thing that I find really frustrating with this game is the dungeon design. There are some just really awful dungeons in this game, where, like, the one that really stood out to me is this one where there are these 2 towers, and you're kind of going back and forth between them, working your way to the top. And the dungeons look, the towers look identical, every floor looks identical to every other floor. The whole thing is just this gray blob and doesn't look, there's very little to differentiate where you are from another place, and it's very confusing. And I found myself just getting lost and not knowing where to go in here in that particular dungeon. It was just frustrating because it was so boringly designed. And that to me, and it wasn't the only time that was like that. It really did frustrate me. The game also requires some grinding, which I'm not really crazy about. There are a couple of places where it really needed a lot of grinding. So again, it's just this close to great, but the things that are drawing it, that are keeping it held back from greatness, are things that just make it so hard to get past. So I do want to finish the game. I haven't given up on it, if I can get past this boss fight. But I really wish that this game would have just done a couple of things different, because it could have been one of the greatest games on the PlayStation 2 if they had just tweaked a little bit. But overall, it's still good, and I still do want to finish it. It's not like I've given up entirely, but I just want to like it more, is really what it comes down to. Okay, the next one here is Grandia 2. This one I actually just bought, have not had a chance to play it yet. I have Grandia 1 on the PlayStation 1, so I wanted to pick up the rest of the series, and I found this at a good price. So I haven't tried it yet. I am now looking for Grandia 3, since I have these. But the first Grandia, I talked about that one in my PlayStation 1 collection. I started it a couple times and haven't finished it. I do want to get back to it, especially now that I have the second one. It really kind of motivates me to get through and finish it up. Okay, so next we're getting into a series which is one of my favorite series of all time, and that is the Shin Megami Tensei series. So the first game we have here is Nocturne. Now, this one I have not started yet. I haven't played it. I've been doing my best to sort of collect all of the Shin Megami Tensei games. I'm fairly new to the series, but I'm absolutely in love with it. And every game in the series that I've played has been stellar. So I've been buying all games so that I have them when I'm ready to get to them. And just haven't gotten to this one yet. But I loved Shin Megami Tensei 4. That was the first one that I played. And this one is a Shin Megami Tensei 3. One of the things I'm a little nervous about is I've heard that this game is really, really hard. Shin Megami Tensei 4 was hard, but I was able to get through that. But this one I've heard is worse. So it makes me a little nervous. We'll see. But again, I love the series so much I can't wait to get to it. The next two here are Digital Devil Saga 1 and 2. I have played through this one, and I'm currently working on this one right now. This is my game I'm playing right now. Absolutely love it. It is a really, really cool game. The thing that's interesting, though, is it's two games, but it is really one game. It is one story. The first game ends on a big cliffhanger, and it goes on to the second one, right, just immediately into it. And so it really, if you want to play this series, you need to pick up both. But I'm so far liking the second one more than the first. The first one had a lot of mystery in its story and what was going on in the world, and which was a big driving point of the plot. But I feel like there are some of those things that were revealed in this, that by now have been revealed in the second game as I'm playing through it. There are still a lot of mysteries, but it's really neat now that I know sort of what was going on in the first game a little bit more. It's really interesting to see how that's playing out and how the characters are reacting to those sort of revelations. It's really, really fantastic. It's a little different from the other Shin Megami Tensei games because you are not collecting the demons. The standard SMT demons are only enemies in this game. Your characters don't recruit demons, and demons aren't on your party. You actually turn into demons, and you turn into unique ones. They aren't ones that are part of the Shin Megami Tensei mythology. They are unique to those characters. But so it's really interesting, and it just makes a very different kind of feel than a lot of the other games. But it still has the same press-turn system that the Shin Megami Tensei core games have, and it just really is a lot of fun. A very cyberpunky kind of feeling, which is cool and sort of dystopian, and I love the atmosphere of it. All right, the next game here is Persona 3. Now, I actually didn't play this particular copy of the game. I played Persona 3 Fez, which I downloaded from the PlayStation Network. But this one is the original game, and I found this at a really good price. I thought it was about $20, but it's the copy that comes with the soundtrack and the art book, and everything was with it. So I thought that was a pretty good deal, and snatched that up, even though I actually was playing the one that I had downloaded from the PlayStation Network. But I love the Persona games. The Persona games are my favorite games of the Shin Megami Tensei family, and actually Persona 4 is my favorite game of all time. I don't have a copy of it on the PlayStation 2, although I kind of want to get one because, just I guess for the collection, but I played it on the Vita. I played the golden version of it. But absolutely fantastic, and Persona 3 is equally as amazing. Not quite as good as 4 in my opinion, but an amazing, amazing game nonetheless. So if you get a chance, absolutely pick up Persona 3. Everybody needs to play this because it is so, so fantastic. Really, really love it. And the last game that we're going to talk about is what I consider probably the best RPG on the PlayStation 2 that I have played on the PlayStation 2. Like I said, I mentioned Persona 4 was my favorite game of all time, but I don't have it on the PS2. But this one is what I think is probably the best RPG that I played on the PlayStation 2, and everyone needs to check it out, and that is Dragon Quest VIII. This game, when this came out, I knew that it was coming, but I didn't know exactly when the release date was, and I just happened to go into a store and I saw it on the shelf, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's out, it's here, it's now. And I went and just, without even thinking, I bought it immediately. Now that's not really like me, at least not back then. I was, gosh, I don't remember when it came out. I was not long out of college, I don't think. And so I was fairly broke, as most people that are freshly out of college are. And this was, so it wasn't something where I would go and buy a brand new game really ever. But I was so excited that this was out. I loved the Dragon Quest games from the NES, and I had Dragon Quest VII on the PlayStation 1. I just absolutely loved them, so I was so excited. And this game is the most perfect blend. I feel like it's the ultimate in what an old school JRPG can be. I mean, it does everything. It hits all those notes. It feels like an old NES game, but it has all of the beautiful graphics from a modern game. It has a lot of the sensibilities. It's basically taken everything good from the new and combined it with the good from the old and makes this beautiful, nearly perfect package. I absolutely love this game, and I really, really recommend everybody that's into Japanese role-playing games needs to pick this one up. You can get this on the iPad these days, so even if you don't have a PlayStation 2 or you have a hard time finding a copy of this, you can get it there. Really just an outstanding game, and just one of my favorite games of all time, so I definitely recommend that people go out and check that out. So that is my PlayStation 2 RPG collection. Like I said, there are a couple of other games that I sort of have on my radar that I'm going to be adding to the collection, so I'll probably do a pickups video coming up that'll talk about some of the new PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games that I get, and I might do some other videos for some of the other systems that I have. These are definitely the ones where I have the most RPGs, the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, I guess PlayStation 3 as well. I have a lot of RPGs on there, but there just aren't as many, it doesn't seem like, on the Xbox family of games. And I have a Super Nintendo and a Nintendo 64, but I don't really have a whole lot of games for them. So again, this is definitely the bulk of my RPG collection. Actually, I probably will do a video on the DS, now that I think about it, because I do have some good ones on there as well. So, but if you like these videos, let me know. I think it's fun to talk about games, as anybody that watches this channel knows, so it's always fun for me to just kind of talk about the games I have and what I think about them. And I am going to to rectify the problem of having played so many of these and finished so few. I will get back to them and finish them. So, and you'll probably see a review video when I do. So thank you as always for watching. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions for me or have any recommendations of other PlayStation 2 RPGs I should be on the lookout for, please let me know in the comments. Thanks so much.